70% of people who start a weight loss program drop out within the first month. The solution is clear evidence-based systems like the one I'm going to teach you in this video. We'll explore a structured 20-week weight loss system designed for beginners, but can also be applied to pretty much any fitness level. This approach focuses on sustainable habits phase by phase, like building blocks. If you find this video useful, please like and subscribe for more evidence-based strategies for effective weight loss through lasting behavior change. Diets fail because they are restrictive, hard to maintain, and without clear guidance, we resort to extremes that lead to burnout, shame, guilt, and frustration. The 20-week system is broken into 4 phases, each lasting 5 weeks. Each of these phases will involve gradually adding onto the habits that we form in the very first phase. The first phase is when we start really basic habits. The second phase is when we introduce resistance training. The third phase is when we introduce a lifestyle habit of choice, and the fourth phase is when we reassess to determine next steps. Let's get into detail, starting with phase 1. Phase 1 is evaluation and then action. The first thing we will do is track our current calories and physical activity for 1 week without making changes. Measure your body weight once a week in the morning at the same time and on the same day of the week for the most accurate data. In this first week, you are also going to write down what your food triggers are, what feelings stimulate you to eat. It could be genuine hunger, but it could also be things like boredom, stress, and social events. The goal of this tracking week is to identify 4 things. Your average caloric intake, average daily step count, and emotional food triggers, as well as starting weight. For example, after a week of tracking food using an app and tracking steps using a Fitbit, you learn that your average caloric intake is 3,300 calories per day and your average steps are 4,500, with your main food triggers being boredom, social events, and late night sugar cravings, and your starting weight is 225. With that data, from there, we set realistic weight loss goals. And realistic is 0.5 pound to 2 pounds per week. So for 1 pound of weight loss per week, we want to eat 500 fewer calories per day than what we ate from our week of tracking with no changes. Using the example from before, that would be 2,800 calories per day as our calorie target. To clarify, you may not be eating in a perfect 500 calorie deficit, but that's okay because we will still see your weight go down week by week, and we can always tweak things later on once we have more data. Weigh yourself weekly, and this will help with where we go with your calories and how we want to tweak things moving forward. In general, it's a good thing to get into the habit of if you're on a weight loss journey. So the first action item after a week of gathering data is setting and sticking to our daily calorie budget. The second action item is activity. In this example I gave before, the daily steps were 4,500 after a week of gathering data. The daily recommendation for steps for just good general health is anywhere from 8,000 to 12,000 steps per day, which is approximately 60 to 75 minutes of walking. Depending on how active your lifestyle already is, you may want to begin dedicating time to walking either in the morning or the evening. If you already have a step count that is an average of between 8,000 to 12,000 steps per day, then you can simply maintain that step count and focus mainly on calories. The purpose of making goals specific like this is to give your brain very little opportunity to work around it. However, we also want the goals to feel really manageable. With the calories and the steps, we want to have a confidence level of at least 8 out of 10 in terms of our belief in our ability to do it. With that being said, maybe for you, eating just 200 fewer calories and adding 1,000 steps is most realistic and manageable for you. Like I said, the most important thing is that you're setting a goal you feel confident you can stick to, because consistency is going to be your biggest ally on your weight loss journey. Lastly, before we move on to phase 2, I would highly recommend having some sort of clear visual reminder of your daily tasks set up in your living room or kitchen or wherever you spend a lot of time. Something like a calendar or whiteboard that you can add check marks to is ideal. So, in a nutshell, Phase 1 consists of gathering data, then setting a calorie goal, setting a step goal, and implementing some sort of calendar or journaling system that will help you keep track of how many days you are able to complete your goals and being aware of what your food triggers are. Phase 2 is resistance training. Phase 2 is exactly the same as Phase 1, but we are adding resistance training to your weekly routine. This is especially important if you are taking weight loss medications because weight loss medications decrease bone density and lean muscle tissue when resistance training is not habitualized. The ideal is 150 minutes of moderate intensity resistance training per week. We are going to begin with 30 to 45 minutes 2 to 3 times a week and work up to a total of 150 minutes. I have a full video on how to resistance train as a beginner, which I will link below, and near the end of that video, I do break down a realistic weekly schedule and what it will look like exactly. You can do these exercises in a gym or at home, though I would recommend going to a gym because it is generally a better environment for meeting friends, creating lasting habits, and getting more in the zone. So for Phase 2, our daily tasks are still, for example, 2,800 calories per day and 60 minutes of walking, and we are adding in the resistance training habit 2 to 3 times per week. By keeping the calories and walking the same and adding in resistance training, we are still eating in a caloric deficit for weight loss, but we are now doing resistance training, which will help us keep lean muscle tissue, bone density, and lose fat, decreasing disease risks related to being in a caloric deficit for long periods of time, and helping you learn more about your body. Continue to weigh yourself once a week, and if your weight is going down by 0.5 pound to 2 pounds per week, then you are losing weight at a healthy rate. You'll want to gauge this based on a full phase of data rather than making drastic changes after 1 week. So, to recap, the main thing changing in Phase 2 is the addition of resistance training to your routine. You can add this to whatever whiteboard or calendar system you established in Phase 1. And again, you can find the link to my beginner resistance training video in the description below. This brings us to Phase 3, which is focus on nutrition. After a full Phase 1 of walking and calorie tracking, and then a full Phase 2 of walking, calorie tracking, and resistance training, in this third phase, we begin nutrition habits. This will begin to fill nutritional gaps related to things like extreme hunger, weight gain, low muscle mass and high body fat, and chronic diseases such as type 2 diabetes. You may be wondering why this is starting now and not earlier. In my experience, clients who have a history of extreme dieting do really well with focusing on habits they have a high degree of confidence with. Walking and tracking tend to be less intimidating than focusing on food specificity. So once we have a lot of confidence in our ability to stay on track with walking and calorie budgets, then we can start to look into nutrition a little bit more. From the list of things I'm about to go through, commit to one that you feel would be the easiest to implement and is most applicable to you. Here we go. Increasing dietary protein, increasing vegetables and fruits, replacing simple carbohydrates with complex ones, decreasing alcohol consumption. We'll go through the doctor thing later. If you want, you can go through each one and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being very easy to implement and 10 being hard to implement. Choose the one that is the lowest score. For example, if eating more protein is a 2 and lowering alcohol is a 7, choose the protein habit as the one you will start with because it's easier. Once you pick your habit, listen to the guidelines I have for each one, which I will go through right now. Guidelines for ideal protein is anywhere from 0.7 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, with the easiest approach to be just aim for 1 gram per pound of your goal body weight. I'm Canadian, so I find it easiest to think in terms of pounds instead of kilos. That's just me. If your goal body weight is 180 pounds, then your daily protein goal is 180 grams, for example. A good goal for fruits and veggies is to simply eat a serving at each meal, with one serving being 2 to 3 cupped hands. Replacing simple carbs with complex carbs means we need to have an understanding of what a simple carb is versus a complex one. Simple carbs are generally anything with lots of sugar and very little fiber. So juice, white bread, pastries, soda, and candy. Complex carbs are whole grains like beans, brown rice, quinoa, lentils, sweet potatoes, and seedy whole grain breads. If you want a detailed breakdown, you can check out my video on how to put together healthy meals, which I will link below. Lastly, guidelines for lowering alcohol consumption are pretty basic. It's best to begin with having lots of days off from drinking, depending on how much you do it. If you have a glass of wine every day, start with maybe only having a glass of wine 4 to 5 times a week or skipping a day. There are people that do really well with just quitting cold turkey, so that's an option. The important thing is to remember that you always want to set yourself up for success and set goals that are realistic for you. As your circle of people changes from people who drink to people who make health a priority, this will become easier. Also, continue to weigh yourself once a week, just like you have been doing. You can choose your nutrition habit for phase 3 now, or if you're watching this and you're just starting phase 1, you can always save this video and decide in 10 weeks when you get to phase 3. This brings us to phase 4, which is maintenance and adjustment. For phase 4, we're getting comfy with building a routine around the habits that we began in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Once we are consistency meaning we do it 80% of the time, with walking, resistance training, and regular food tracking, this is technically the beginning of maintenance behaviors. And all that means is you've made it through the hardest part, so give yourself a high five. With daily 60-minute walks, resistance training 2 to 3 times a week, consistent protein intake or vegetable intake, or lower alcohol or whatever you chose for phase 3, and awareness of emotional food triggers, we want to look at the trend of our weight over the past 3 months. What you want is to see a trend downwards with an average of 0.5 pound to 2 pounds per week of weight loss. There are basically 3 different directions we can go from here based on what your individual results are up to this point. Let me go through those 3 different scenarios. Scenario 1, your weight loss graph is consistently going downward and you feel okay, so you continue doing what you are doing. In this case, simply continue to walk, track, and train, and you can even introduce another lifestyle habit from the list I gave in phase 3, or anything that your doctor may have recommended. Scenario 2, your weight loss graph is consistently going downward, but you notice early signs of diet fatigue. These early signs include low sleep quality and/or trouble falling asleep, extreme fatigue and irritability, and you just kind of feel hungry and moody and not good all the time, and it's starting to impact your quality of life. If you are experiencing these symptoms of diet fatigue, increase calories back up to maintenance or just slightly below maintenance for anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks. If you have a big weight loss goal, make the diet break shorter in the 4 to 6 week range. If you have a smaller weight loss goal, make the diet break longer in the 8 to 12 week range. While you are taking a diet break, continue with walking, resistance training, and nutrition mindfulness habits. When you return to a calorie deficit, increase dietary protein to 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight per day if you weren't already doing so. That's scenario 2. Scenario 3, you have had trouble sticking to the program, and as a result, you have seen minimal weight loss. In this case, it's just a matter of forgiving yourself and returning to phase 1. It's not going to feel as easy as just forgiving yourself because you're likely going to be in varying degrees of a shame spiral. For further encouragement and guidance on this, I actually have a whole video of how to come back after a period of relapse, which I will link below. Assess which of these scenarios is you and take action accordingly. Beyond week 20, it's going to feel less like a program and more like just your normal life with habits that promote a healthy body weight. I want to take a second to go through some important final guidelines. Firstly, do not restrict calories beyond 500 below maintenance. Aim for a calorie deficit of 200 to 500 per day. Any more and you are more at risk of long-term muscle wasting and or a bounce back resulting in more weight gain in the long term. Secondly, do not set a step goal that is more than 8 to 12,000 steps because this will probably leave you feeling sore and is not super sustainable long term for joints and connective tissue, even when done with resistance training. Thirdly and lastly, expect to have setbacks and do not react to these setbacks with over restriction or over exercising. Simply get back to the basics of phase 1 and slowly build back up. Like I said at the beginning of this video, the goal with this system is to create behavior change that will last a lifetime. So there's no rush. If this system is followed, it will cultivate patience, discipline, self-esteem, and long-term health benefits that go far beyond just weight loss. Let me share a story of my client Lorraine, who this system worked really well for. During phase 1, she realized that boredom eating was a major issue for her. She started walking for 30 minutes every day and tracking calories. In phase 2, she began intermittent fasting to manage snacking. I think she heard about it online or something and wanted to try it. And by the end of the 52 weeks, Lorraine lost 20 pounds, but here's the catch. After those 52 weeks, she had a life change that increased her time spent at home, and she relapsed and gained the weight back. So we returned to phase 1, worked through boredom snacking again, refocused on exercise habits like walking at home exercises and swimming, as well as calorie tracking. And today, Lorraine's weight is slowly going back down. And we did not move her to phase 2 until she had done the basics of phase 1 for at least 5 weeks. We did not do keto. We did not do carnivore. We did not dramatically restrict. We simply followed the system. The key takeaway from Lorraine's journey is that she did not give up. She relapsed, took the lesson, and simply returned to the basics. The 20-week beginner weight loss system emphasizes sustainable habits over extreme dieting. Focus on small changes that contribute to a healthier lifestyle. Remember that progress is not linear and setbacks are normal. Share your weight loss experiences in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more evidence-based weight loss strategies. Stay tuned for my next video where I talk about how to get back on track after a relapse. And you can also sign up for my free weight loss training for additional tips and resources. Thank you for watching and see you next time.